Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dreams Unlimited Travel Podcast. My name is John Magi, and I will be your host. And in this episode, we're going to be answering some of your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and email, specifically related to Adventures by Disney Vacations. I'm joined at the table by our panel of experts. Client Services Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Kevin Close.
Hi, everybody.
Agent and Welcome Center Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Teresa Eccles.
Hello.
And back in our production facility, we have our producer, Craig Williams.
Hi.
Hi, guys. How's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Okay.
Craig sounds like he's here to fix the copier. Hi.
Hi.
I am.
Here for back in the production
Bow,
facility.
chicka, wow, wow.
First thing, you got to make it creepy. We haven't even started yet. All right. So what I do is during the course of a couple of months, I collect your questions about a specific topic and I hang on to them so that we can answer them on a show. And this show, we're going to talk about Adventures by Disney. What's really nice is, obviously, Kevin and I have been on several, but Teresa, you've been on how many Adventures by Disney?
2
Excellent.
or 3, yeah.
Which 2 have you been on?
I did the Backstage Magic, and then I did a ABD add-on in Europe.
A cruise
Actually, 2.
add-on?
I did a pre-cruise in Barcelona, and then I did the cruise add-on.
That's good because I haven't done one of those.
Yeah.
Either one of those.
Excellent. Craig, what about you?
I've done 2 Backstage Magics and the Central Europe vacation.
Excellent. So we should have some experience between us. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these questions. All right, let's get started. Our first question. I hear you all talk about Adventures by Disney trips, and they sound great. They also seem very expensive to me, especially with the limited amount of money I have to spend on vacations. Why are these trips so expensive? Is it worth it to skip a trip to Walt Disney World for an ABD? So let's talk about why they're so expensive.
These are guided tours. You have 2 Disney trained tour guides with you, and depending on where you adventure, there's a chance that you'll have additional guides in each of that's usually in foreign places, in foreign cities overseas. They'll put out what they call a local guide, or who will step on, who's a local expert in whatever city you're in. These include all of your transportation, except your airfare to and from your destination, and they also include the majority of your meals. There is some on your own time, but ABD uses top flight hotels that are usually very centrally located. They're close to whatever you are going to be doing. And again, it's like, why is Disney more expensive than a trip someplace else?
Six Flags.
Right. It's just... You're paying for quality. And people don't seem to understand that until they take their first trip and they think, oh, I get it. It's like having a concierge that travels with you.
You can do similar trips. Now, Adventures by Disney has exclusive trips. We talked about Backstage Magic. That's just an Adventures by Disney trip because it involves Disneyland and backstage areas that other places people can't get to. But you can do European trips through other tour companies and things like that. But Disney has special touches that just raise the bar. One of the things we talk about all the time is we're out in Italy and all of a sudden a group of people walk by pulling their own luggage over the cobblestones.
And they're following the gentleman with the antenna with a rag tied to it. And you think, that's not something ABD would ever do.
Right.
You show up where you are going and you start your tour and you don't worry about your luggage. And when you get to your hotel later, your luggage is already in your room.
Well, there's a level of depth that Adventures by Disney goes into on the activities that they plan for you. After we did our Viking Italian cruise, that was a really big sign of that. Not that there was anything wrong with the excursions that they did through the ship, but in some instances you were like, okay, it felt very bare bones to when I would do a tour with Adventures by Disney, where I felt like I actually got the history, a certain depth of knowledge, and actually walked away feeling fulfilled from the full experience. And so with touring internationally, the only 2 experiences being those, ABD definitely has a leg up in terms of the tours they offer.
There's also a price difference based on that.
What struck me was, I remember the first time it hit me that there was a difference. We were at the Vatican, and the line was just wrapped around people just waiting to get in. And I thought, okay, we're going to get in this line. And then we just walked past hundreds and hundreds of people and walked right in.
I have a similar story. On one of our trips to Italy, it was actually the first time I was going to get to see the statue of David. And at the beginning of the trip, they asked us what was the one thing we were looking forward to, and that was the thing I was looking forward to. And the morning of that event, the museum workers went on strike, and we couldn't get into the museum. Well, they finally called later in the afternoon that the strike had been settled. I think the smoke break was over.
Right. Lunch was done. So the strike was over. Back to work.
So we got to the street where the Academy is, and there were thousands of people because your entrance to the museum is timed. There were thousands of people backed up, and Disney barreled through that crowd.
Raised that paddle.
And we went right into the museum again in front of everybody. There's a level of access that Disney offers that others don't.
Yeah, I went when we were in Rome. I wanted to the Spanish Steps. I wanted to stay a little bit longer, and one of our guides stayed back with me while everybody moved on, so I could just kind of hang and, do what I wanted to do for just a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is the guides themselves, in addition to being excellent at what they do, I think they really take an interest in the people on the trip, and they get to know you and know things about you. Our guides understood that we were not mountain climbers and hiking type of people, so they would work with us to be like, okay, we're going to be at this restaurant at noon. You guys do what you want to do. Here's how you would get there. We'll get you a cab. We'll make it work out for you. So
I remember standing outside of Westminster Abbey one day, and it was chilly. We were in London. And we had to wait to go in for a little bit. And someone mentioned that they were cold. It was cold out here this morning. And there was probably a group of 10 of us. And within a minute, the adventure guide showed up with hot chocolate for us all.
Wow.
So it's kind of those touches that make you think.
They think ahead of what anything could happen, and they're ready for it when it happens.
So yeah, they're more expensive than other trips. Do I think it's worth skipping a Disney World vacation? I absolutely do. I think especially international travel opens your eyes. It makes you feel less insulated. It just
experiences that you never
It
had
opens your
before.
experiences. It makes you feel like, I think sometimes we think we're the center of the universe, and I'm talking about me personally. You become very wrapped up in yourself, and this opens your eyes to the fact
The
that
China trip did that for me. The China trip was like, okay, we've been to Europe many, many times, and then it's like Asia was so different for us. And being in that Disney bubble of safety, and they're going to take care of you, and they're going to get you from place to place, and you don't have to worry, really allowed me to experience that and not, be concerned about the other stuff.
Well, we hear so often that people are like, well, I don't care about the outside culture. I just want to go on vacation and be happy at a place like Walt Disney World. And the only thing I would say is until you break that cycle, because Disney is a drug in all senses. And until you break that cycle, you don't really realize what else is out there. Going to a beach off the coast of Maryland or Jersey isn't the same as traveling to Europe and being wrapped up in a culture that's thousands of years old. So until you cut it out, you don't really truly understand that it is worth skipping seeing the same thing over and over again in Walt Disney World to see something new.
Driving in the back of a Jeep in Malta, just flying down the road is just crazy, and I wouldn't do that on my own.
Right.
I wouldn't have think to do that.
there are some things with Adventures by Disney that you can't do on your own. Adventures by Disney opens doors that aren't open to the public.
All right, let's move on to our second question. There are so many Adventures by Disney trips that sound awesome that I don't even know where to start. What trip should I take? Tell me your favorite. I think we always start out with the one that's really the easiest, that if you're not sure what to do or how to do it, is start with the Disneyland Backstage Magic. It's, a North American trip, so most people can get there easy for travel-wise. Everyone's going to speak English. It has that Disney connection
If you're a Disney fan, you see things you can't see other places.
Right, huge Disney backstage experiences that you wouldn't get anywhere else. It's a great stepping stone to get into it. But then let's say, all right, people have done that. What's their next trip?
One of the trips that's the most popular and the one that I have virtually no desire to go to is the Costa Rica trip. People love the Costa Rica trip.
Yep.
It's a lot of outdoors adventure kind of stuff that I'm an indoor kind of boy.
Lots of nature.
Lots of nature. I think what you should do is I think you should sit with your travel party and try and figure out what you want to see.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm one of those people who wants to go everywhere, but I just think you have to figure out what your comfort level is, what your price point is. One of the least expensive is the Disneyland Backstage Magic trip. We call that the gateway drug. We send you on that one, and then we wait for you to call back.
Yeah. Adventures by Disney is addictive. You will go on more than one.
I have folks who just came back from a trip. They have been back 3 weeks and just booked their next trip for next year. So it's one of those things that they are addictive. I really think it depends on what you want to see. If you have an urge to visit Italy, perfect. If you want to go to South Africa, I can help you do that too.
I know you guys have only done certain trips. What's a trip you think you would like to do? Like, where's a place in the world you would like to see?
I would like to do Ireland and England. Talking about how to pick. We did the ABD add-on for the Med Cruise, and that was absolutely perfect because we got a little touch of absolutely everything just to make you want to come back.
Adventures by Disney offers on select cruises in Europe. They offer an ABD add-on, and it's like adding an adventure guide to your trip so that while other people are doing the far less in-depth shore excursions that are offered through the ship, Adventures by Disney actually does in-depth.
Are they still doing the little weekend getaways here in the States?
They are.
Yeah?
They are.
They are actually on hold right now. They're kind of being retooled.
I was going to say, I know that some of them have gone away, but some of them are coming back.
New York and San Francisco are still available, or they're not available right this minute, but they expect to be available very, very soon.
I think that would be a good start too. A good just some.
The only problem I have with those is, me personally, I feel like those are cities I could do on my own. Going to Greece or China on my own seems daunting, but going to New York
each
City,
of
we
those
go to all
trips,
the time.
though, does offer you things that you can't do.
Especially the New York trip.
Right.
Yeah, has a backstage experience that.
And it gives you a taste of what the
quality that you're buying.
Yeah, definitely.
I would compare it to when you sit and you think about, is staying at the Polynesian worth the additional cost? Because the Polynesian is a pricey resort. Is it worth staying at a Disney resort as opposed to going to your local theme park?
Are you liking it to, someone who might get a VIP tour guide?
Right.
Or something like that. If you're willing to pay the extra money for the access, it's definitely worth it. There are other perks, too, with Adventures by Disney. They do some really interesting things. I mean, they do the pin every day, and every day is a little bit of a story.
I made pizza in Italy.
You made pizza, right? So there are experiences.
Little
I made
experience.
pretzels in Germany.
Did you see? It's just fun little things.
And we were in Italy one time, and they taught us how to make, were they gnocchi or ravioli? And all I can tell you is it was a group of about 30 of us, and it became competitive.
Yeah.
And we laughed ourselves silly, but it became competitive. There was competitive ravioli making. There was a husband and wife, and I thought they were going to, wrestle.
All right, let's move on to our next question. Does Adventures by Disney ever offer discounts? Will they discount a trip if it isn't full?
Adventures by Disney for the last 2 or 3 years has offered a discount, an early booking discount when the dates are first released. They were released in May this year, and pretty much every trip had early booking discounts attached to it. Let me explain what that means. The first 4 spaces on every departure were offered. If it was an overseas trip, it was $500 per person. If it was a domestic trip, it was $400 a person. But once those first 4 spaces have been filled, the early booking discount went away for that particular departure. Now, I have helped people who wanted the early booking discount and were flexible with their dates, and I can shop different dates to see where the discount is available. But like cruise lines and other forms of vacation, prices increase as the space fills. ABD works on a tiered system, so once a certain amount of space is filled on any given departure, the price will increase. I find that the earlier you book, the less you pay. It's very, very rare that ABD will offer a discount, and I would certainly never book, or I would never tell you to wait to see if that happens. I have seen them discount trips that just didn't sell.
Yeah. What they did, I don't know if it was 2018 was the first year, or it was actually last year as well. They offered a special savings on trips that weren't filling, and it was very little. It was like $250 off the price of your trip. But again, if you wait till that last minute, then you're also looking at how am I going to get my airfare,
Right.
things like that. I don't believe it was anything like the Backstage Magics. It was usually
It wasn't the real
European.
popular, the ones that
Right.
sell it wasn't Italy per se, or Backstage Magic or Costa Rica. I would never suggest you wait.
Right.
You're going to save by booking early.
What about, I know there's an Adventures Insider discount, right? If you've traveled before.
They run that occasionally.
Okay.
It doesn't run all the time. And sometimes they do it per person. It's $100 off your adventure per person. And other times it will be $300 for whatever your travel, or as long as it's two people, whatever your party size is. So if you're booking for
Per
a party of
adventure
four,
as opposed to per person.
right. So if you're a couple going on a trip, a $300 discount is better than two $100 discounts. But the Adventure Insider promotion, as a matter of fact, it's not running right now, and it doesn't usually run in conjunction with another promotion. The early booking discount, and believe it or not, there are still some available. It runs through the middle of July. They'll never run another promotion on top of that.
Right. All right. Speaking of discounts, our next question. How does the Dreams Unlimited travel booking discount for Adventures by Disney work? It says it's an early booking discount. When will that discount expire? So, Dreams Unlimited travel discount is a certain amount of money off your adventure based on the final price of your adventure. If you go to our website, we have a quote page, a no obligation quote page that will show you the price of the adventure, and it will show you our discount, and it will show you your final price. And this is off the top. So it's not like you're waiting for a check or you're waiting for a rebate or something like that. We will take that off the top of your price of your adventure, just flat out. You won't have to pay that amount. And then I'm going to say something else. This is exclusive to the people who are listening to the show right now. So no, don't tell anybody else. We run that early booking discount all year long. Shh, don't tell anybody.
I have something else
Secret.
that's kind
Top
of no one,
secret.
people don't seem to get or notice.
What?
If you book your airfare through Adventures by Disney, Disney airfare or ABD airfare is based on just general published airfare. There's no discounts to it, but you can pick your airline, you can pick your seat, and book it through Adventures by Disney. And as we add that airfare to the cost of your adventure, the Dreams booking discount is off the top of your total price. So if you add additional nights, pre-nights, post-nights, or airfare, or even travel insurance through us, that increases your early booking discount. So people are always asking me, how do I get a discount on airfare? This is the only way I can guarantee you a discount on your airfare. Book your adventure through us, book your airfare through Disney or ABD, and you'll get a discount. It's not a great discount on airfare, but it's
Right.
better than not getting a
Because
discount.
it's on the total price of your trip. If you put a couple $1,000s worth of air on your trip, that's going to give you a better discount from us. But yeah, I wanted to make sure I told that to people. We call it an early booking discount. It gives us the option of ending it when we want, but for the last couple of years, we've run it all year long and on every adventure. So
And again,
Do it.
You don't have to wait for a gift card. You don't have to wait for a check from us. We just take that price off the top. And the way it works is you make your final payment of what you're due, and then Dreams Unlimited Travel pays the rest of your adventure.
sound good, Teresa?
Yeah.
All right.
Sign me up.
All right. On to our next question.
You have to book an adventure, though, and pay for your part.
Okay.
Really. Many Adventures by Disney trips have a minimum age and a suggested age. Should I bring a young child on these trips? And if so, what age do you think is appropriate?
I answer this question a lot. And my answer is kind of cheesy. You know your child better than I do. These are not usually trips that are aimed specifically at children. The Backstage Magic in Disneyland has a great deal of history, a great deal of standing around, a great deal of touring the backstage areas. There are some things that we do that they do that are expressly fun, but it's not all run from ride to ride.
Right.
And for example, you get to go backstage at Indiana Jones. Now, I think a kid, depending on the kid it is going to want to ride Indiana Jones, and you eventually do that. But there's a kind of lengthy explanation of how the ride works. So I think it would depend on your child.
Also, the adventure. I think it depends on the adventure. Is your kid going to be into museums in Europe? Are they going to be into that kind of history? Some kids are.
Now, there are things on each trip. Let's talk about museum. When adults visit the Louvre on the London-Paris trip, the adults go off and, do the art tour. The kids play art detectives with one of the guides, and they go racing through the museum looking for clues. When there's a wine tasting in Italy, the kids go to a gelato tasting. I don't drink wine. I've been to the gelato tasting. So there are things. Adventures by Disney takes care of your children. There are activities aimed specifically at them, but they still have to travel with the rest of the group, and there's going to be times when there's not a child's activity. So you have to decide. And a lot of times the minimum age is 6. Some are as low as 4. But you have to decide. You have to know your kid.
Yeah, we had a child on the Mediterranean one, and I remember at the Coliseum, we had several children. At the Coliseum, they took the children off somewhere else to, do gladiator fighting or something, which just sounded like a lot of fun.
Right. Why can't I do that?
Right, I want to do that. But, again, all the children on our group were well-behaved, and we all just kind of took care of them. And
that's
and
the
they
other
were
thing.
fine.
Bringing your child, you now have 30 other parents.
Right.
And we've been on trips where we had a young boy who went to a Backstage Magic with us, and he was fascinated by every single word, but he had read about Walt Disney's life. So I think he was 7 or 8, and he was into it. And then we had one that just wanted to disrupt everything.
Yeah.
It all depends on your child, and you know better than I do.
Yeah. I would just say with that, too, it's because I had friends thinking about going to Italy, maybe even with Adventures by Disney, and after doing an Alaska cruise and finding out that they weren't super into that kind of weaned them off being ready to. So I would just think about it. Your kids might say they're ready to go and do something they're interested in, but you also have, as someone who doesn't have kids, I know I'm not the one to be speaking about it, but I would have hated that if my parents would have taken me to all these places when I was 7 and 8, and now I have no memories of it, and maybe the littlest of memories, but not actually the appreciation of being there. I wouldn't have been happy about it now as an adult, saying oh, it's great, I got to do all these things, but I didn't remember that much. So I would say just be able to gauge when your kids are truly going to remember it and appreciate it, because unless you have the flexibility to do multiple Adventures by Disney trips a year and you have that cash flow, if it's a one-time trip, don't waste it when the kids aren't going to remember. Maybe wait that extra year or two.
I would also tell you that, it would depend on how your child travels. Because on some trips, there are bus rides that last a couple of hours. You just have to know how well your child travels.
Right. There's some downtime. We also, excuse me, we often get the question, or someone says, I don't want to travel with kids. So there are adult-only adventures you can take, but there are a lot of times people can't take those. And a lot of people say, well, I don't want to travel with someone else's kid. I don't want to be disrupted by a kid. For the most part, any trip we've been on, there's never been a ton of children. There's been 2, 3, maybe 4 kids, I think, at the most. And for the most part, they're all well-behaved, but they get the attention of the guides.
I would also say that if you're looking, and there's not as many adult-only departures. If you're looking at a certain trip, you can always gauge how many kids are going to be on the trip by whether they're in school or not.
Yeah.
If you're going, June, July, and August, I would expect there to be children on each trip.
September, October, not so much.
Right.
All right, let's move on. Our next question. Adventures by Disney vacations seem like a big financial commitment, especially the deposit. Can you explain how the deposit and final payment works? Are deposits refundable? And what if I need to change my trip?
ABD requires to book an adventure a 10% deposit. So it's all going to depend on the cost of your adventure and the number of people traveling. It is 10%. Your deposit is fully refundable for 14 business days. After that, your deposit is non-refundable. ABD is very flexible in that as long as you make a change to your trip before final payment, which is 120 days prior to departure, as long as you make your change, ABD will allow you to park a reservation, meaning that they'll take your deposit and just put it in a bank. And what happens is you have 2 years from the date you made your deposit to commit to another trip. You don't have to travel within 2 years, but you do have to commit to another adventure. So that's, you don't lose your deposit, but you have to you have to know you're going to travel.
Right.
And what's nice is this often helps people who can't travel this year. As long as you've got the 2 years from the date of the deposit, you can wait till ABD releases the next year's dates in May. So you might be able to go, like for instance, right now, if you had a reservation in 2019 that you can't do it, you could wait till next May and get 2020 dates. So they're very flexible with it that way.
I don't think you should ever book a trip with the idea that you're not going to go. I understand you will have that idea in your head that what if something happens because these trips are far away, but never book with the idea that, well, can I get my deposit back because I may not go?
Right. Now, there is a caveat to all of this. If taking you off a certain departure date affects the viability of that departure, meaning if you pull a party of 4 out of a departure and it now is there's not enough people to make the trip go, ABD will not allow you to cancel or move that reservation. I have only run into that once. And it was because it would affect the viability of a departure.
Right. Adventures by Disney needs a certain amount of people to make a trip go. That's what they call it.
To make it profitable.
To make it profitable and to make it actually travel, because that's what they call a guaranteed departure because it's got enough people on it. So if you're the person who is the reason that it goes below that number, you're going to lose.
As I said, it's only happened once.
All right.
And that's because it was a last minute kind of thing.
Excellent. All right. Let's move on to our next question. I desperately want to go on an Adventures by Disney trip.
Call me.
Especially one of your exclusive trips. But my husband doesn't like to eat with other people or participate in activities with a large group. Oh, I think I know him. Can you help me to convince...
I might be married to him.
I think so. Can you help me convince him he will be okay and have fun? Also, how many guests are on each trip? I think before we answer those questions, you want to talk about what she means by our exclusive trips?
Every year, Dreams Unlimited Travel and the Diz contract for an entire departure, meaning we reserve all of the spaces. And everybody that goes on this adventure is booked through Dreams Unlimited Travel, meaning me. And usually, almost always, someone from the podcast travels with you. Now, we have a Backstage Magic, and coming up in July, the end of July, that's a Diz exclusive, and Pete and Rhino are traveling on that trip. We have another Backstage Magic happening in December, and John and I are going on that trip. Both of those trips are sold out, but we're going to be releasing 2019 adventures. I'm not going to give away any information because y'all will write to me and want to book, and I'm not going to do that yet. I have to wait for Adventures by Disney to offer me the contracts. We have to sign the contracts, agree to the pricing, and the trip has to be set up first. But we have 2 coming up in 2019, which I thought we would be released by now, but I had an accident and didn't get to do it. It means it's just our group. There are no outsiders.
No outsiders. Let's answer the second question first. How many guests are on each trip?
On an ABD trip, the total number is usually 40. Depending on the trip, I have seen them go a bit over. And I've also seen them limit the number of people on the trip to less, depending. The baseline is 40 people.
All right. And usually they're much less than that.
At Dreams Unlimited Travel, the Dreams and Diz exclusive trips, we keep the number lower. Yeah. We usually keep it in the 30 to 35 range.
All right. So let's talk about Teresa's husband who doesn't like to eat with other people.
Leave him home and find someone that wants to go.
Oh, man, that's rough. So I think there's a couple people in this room who have a similar idea about that. You know, some of us are a little uncomfortable with strangers and stuff. How would we address that?
You got to get over it. And I don't mean to be blunt, but there are meals where everyone eats at the same time. Yeah. Now, you don't necessarily have to sit down at a table with other people, but in some restaurants you go in, they have the number of seats that meet the number of people on your trip.
So there might be a table for 6 that he would have to share with you and other people. Okay,
yeah, as far as like a big group, I wouldn't consider eating at a table of 6 while they might be strangers. You get to know each other so quickly that it's not a big deal. I would say the only time on any of the 3 trips I've been on where I've been at a giant table is actually at the Tam O'Shanter. And that's like literally the one meal where you're at and I don't even think the first time I went there it was like that, but it was the second time where it was a big long table and 12, 13, 14 people at it. Other than that, you're at a table for 2, 4, at most 6. So I wouldn't be too afraid of
the other thing I would say.
Let me just say this: the Tam O'Shanter is part of the Disneyland Backstage Magic, and we've been on several of those now, and it's usually tables of 4.
I would also suggest, we talked about the guides being your traveling concierge. If this is truly an issue, I would talk to the guides at the beginning of the trip and say, listen, this is what we like. Is there things we can do about that? One of the things that I try and tell people, and it's kind of selling the unknown, is that after the first day or 2 of your trip, you're with family. These people become your travel companions. They become friends. Kathy Whirling never believed me until she went on her first trip. I still get Christmas cards from the very first trip we ever went on in 2006. So we've also made friends with some of the people that we travel with. Many of the people that we travel with, you just become friends with people because you're experiencing the same things. You're seeing the same things. It's a shared experience and it brings you closer together. And that's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not unknown. It's the hardest part to sell.
Intangible.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
As far as the activities go, well, if you want to do those activities on a trip, like if you want to see the Statue of David or you want to, do whatever Teresa did, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, that you have to go with the other people. That's just the way it is. Now there's the opportunity where you can skip an activity and say, listen, I don't want to participate in this, and the guys will help you get to the next place where you have to be or tell you what you have to do. But that's really on your own. If you're willing to miss that activity, that's fine.
There's no refund for that. If you don't want to do a certain activity, you don't get to opt out of it price-wise. However, I'll give you a perfect example. There are so many things in Paris that I want to do, and there isn't a whole day where I have on my own time. So both times I've done the Adventures by Disney trip to Paris, Adventures by Disney spends most of a day visiting Versailles. And I've made the decision both times that the things that I wanted to do were more important to me. I have skipped Versailles. The only thing you're really not allowed to skip is when the Adventures by Disney transportation takes you from one place to the next. Because otherwise you're going to have to find your own way from London to Paris. You have to be on the train with Adventures by Disney, but you're not required to participate in any activity. You can go off on your own. And we've done that many times where we decided one night in Germany, they were doing a nighttime tour, and they explained that it was over uneven cobblestones in the dark that would probably be slippery because of the mist. And I thought, well, wow, there's the trifecta. Dark, slippery, and uneven. Woohoo! I didn't do that. So you can opt out of any activity if it's not something you want to do.
I also want to say, too, these activities aren't like, all 40 of you are holding hands and going together. people are gonna walk to places or go through an experience, and you're gonna be on your own. So I mean, it's not like he has to be there with you every time.
But I remember one adventure I did. There was a couple, and she was the go-getter, the one that wanted to be there. You could just tell. He was quieter and more laid back. But everybody, I mean, there's enough people, someone's going to eventually talk to this person. And like you said, you're going to be close, not close friends, but you're going to bond over this stuff. I mean,
Or if you're worried that you're going to be ostracized and people are going to make you sit by yourself, it's not like that at all.
no. And the minute I dropped the pizza dough on his head, he was cool. You know?
Really?
Now, I have to tell you, the only thing that ABD definitely requests, if you're going to opt out of a activity or opt out in the middle of an activity, that you let the guides know. And that's just so that
They
the
keep
other
track of you.
38 people don't stand around waiting for you to show up and you've left.
He's gonna have a good time. Here's the deal. Even if he's antisocial and doesn't like people, you're gonna go and see and do things that you wouldn't get a chance to see and do otherwise. So I think he should make
As
him
I
go.
said, if it's a huge issue, just let the guides know in advance, and I'm sure they'll help you work it out.
Our next question. I booked my Adventures by Disney vacation, but now what? At what point should I buy airfare? Can you explain how the transfers work? ABD lists luggage allowances. Is that firm? What if I want to add or remove a guest? I'm assuming she did not book through us.
I'm going to say, let's break this up, okay?
I'm assuming
was the
she's not-
first part?
I'm certainly hoping she's not a client of ours because if she has this many questions, there's a problem. All right, so the first one is she's booked. Now what? As soon as you booked and paid your deposit, what should happen next, Kevin?
Oh my gosh, it's the hardest part. Once you've decided on your adventure and you've booked it, you have 14 days for a full refund. You have to send back what Adventures by Disney calls your travel agreement. It's a contract with Adventures by Disney. And then comes the really, really hard part. You have to wait. There's nothing really for you to plan on your own. I don't have activities for you to decide on. You're going to
Not
have
like
to,
a Disney vacation where now you got to think about what ride you want to ride.
or what reservations you want for dinner. It's a horrible waiting game from when you book to when you actually depart. Now, there are things you're going to have to decide. I recommend if you're traveling a great distance that you always add a pre-night. And I can do that usually through Adventures by Disney. But you should arrive. If you think there's going to be jet lag involved, I strongly suggest a pre-night where you have a day to acclimate to the time zone you're in. So those things have to be planned. Other than that, you've got to decide what you're going to do pre your adventure and post your adventure. Some people fly in and fly out as soon as the adventure's over.
Speaking of flights, when should she book her airfare? I'm assuming it's a she. Could be a he.
Okay. If I could explain how to book the best airfare, I would be wealthy.
Right. We wouldn't be doing this.
I wouldn't be doing this. I would be telling people how to get the cheapest airfare. I can tell you what John and I do. As soon as I know where we're going and when we're going, I start watching airfare. Now, because you can book so far out with Adventures by Disney, is it the FAA? I get the FAA and the FCC confused. The FAA is the airline.
Airline, yeah.
They only allow
FCC's television, I think.
they only allow you to book a maximum of 331 days from the last day of your adventure. So it's the middle of June. You can book airfare now through the end of April. I can't book you more than 331 days in advance. That's not my rule. That's not Adventures by Disney's rule. You have to wait till you're within that window. And then what I do is I watch. And I wait and we make an educated decision. Is this airfare that's acceptable to us? Now, some airlines you can watch, and if there's a drastic drop in fare and you're within a certain time frame, they might give you that back as a credit. It's very rarely a refund, but they might give you a credit. You just have to wait. You have to make the decision when you're most comfortable. And it's a gamble because it could change tomorrow. It could change the same day.
Let's say price isn't the issue. What would you suggest to somebody who's booked Adventures by Disney? Get your airfare as soon as you're comfortable? Or do you suggest they wait until the trip is closer in case something happens? What would you suggest to them?
I have people who book and then book airfare immediately. And that's because they want to button everything up.
No, that's me. You know me.
Right.
I'm like, well, our next trip, do we have our air? Okay, good. Next trip after that, do we have our air? I want it all.
Price
in place.
is usually an issue. So I suggest we just watch the airfare. It's a gamble. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? There are websites you can go to where they predict whether it's going to go up or down.
As of this recording, they're predicting that airfare is going to go up because of oil prices.
Right.
So, and jet fuel prices. So that's something to consider. Is that are you taking a gamble by waiting longer for prices to go up? But you never know.
You don't. I've used the word a couple times. It's a gamble.
Okay. Can you explain how the transfers work?
Yes. ABD offers airport to hotel transfers on all adventures. If you book an adventure with, if you book an additional night with ABD, transfers are still included. Transfers get trickier when you book additional nights on your own. If you book, I'm going to use Backstage Magic. It's just easy. If you book an additional night, ABD will just pick you up at LAX and bring you to the hotel. If you decide to stay at a different hotel pre-trip, ABD will pick you up at the airport and deliver you to the Lowe's Hotel. They will deliver you to the Adventure Hotel. They will not pick you up at the airport and take you to the hotel you booked on your own. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Right, because that's where the adventure is being held. They can't
So
take
then you would
to-
be responsible from getting from the Adventure Hotel to the hotel that you've booked. Sometimes that works out for people because they found a less expensive hotel next door to the Adventure Hotel. So that's how that works. Departure transfers are a little more strict in that if you book a hotel that's not the Adventure Hotel, 99% of the time transfers are not included. They will not take you from the Adventure Hotel to your new hotel. That's all on you. There are exceptions. River cruising has some exceptions to it that are kind of too complicated to explain. The short escape for Disneyland, as long as you're staying at a Disney hotel, if you wanted to stay longer. Now, they don't offer pre or post nights with that short escape. They usually don't on any of the short escapes. They don't for Barcelona. They don't. So what happens is if you're staying at a Disney hotel, transfers can be included. It just becomes more convoluted, and each situation is different.
All right. She wants to know about the luggage allowance. Is that firm? What is the luggage allowance?
It's usually a carry-on in one large suitcase. Here's the deal. If the trip is full, chances are there's going to be a motor coach involved. And the luggage allowance is based on how much luggage can fit under the bus.
Yeah.
I have seen people bring extra luggage, but then I have to say to you, if everybody on your trip brings an extra piece of luggage, there's going to be an issue. So try and stick as close to your luggage allowance as possible. I've not seen them turn anyone away because of an extra piece of luggage. But again, you have to say to yourself, if I do it and everybody else on the trip does it, something's not going to fit. So
you're also probably overpacking if you're bringing too much more. I know some people on longer trips, they might need to prepare for different environments, lots of changes up and down. But yeah, I know at least when I went to Central Europe, I way overpacked. I only had what I needed, and I had my big and my carry-on. But even with that, I was like, I could have dropped probably another 10 pounds
It's
from
human
this and still
nature.
been
You know,
fine.
you want to have all your stuff with you. I want to make sure I'm prepared for every situation. I want to make sure I have all the things I need. I know
a
that
travel friend who brings a giant suitcase that just contains her shoes.
Yeah.
I'm not mentioning names. He's from Texas.
The thing I want to say too is that I know a lot of people don't want to do this, and it's a cost. But we do laundry on a trip. We send things out to the dry cleaner, and I know it's not.
Oh, you don't do the laundry.
Oh, no, I please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not
Just
going down to the
clarify that.
Ganges and banging things on rocks.
But some hotels, like the Disneyland hotels, do have laundry facilities that you can use. But I mean,
This is especially useful if you're paying for luggage allowances. If you have to pay extra for extra luggage, sometimes the laundry works out cheaper.
but if we do a very long trip that maybe even is in addition to the Adventures by Disney trip, we'll send stuff to the dry cleaner and have stuff cleaned. So that's an option as well. You don't need to bring, 6 pair of pants with you.
Depending on your destination, I would also tell you that almost all of the adventure would be casual. They suggest, there might be a dinner where they suggest that you dress up. If you're visiting churches, there might be requirements that,
Ladies can't show their shoulders, have bare shoulders. And
men are supposed to have shorts that cover their knees. But for the most part, you're going to be casual. You're going to be in touring clothes.
Right. I agree. One more question for this long question, and it's what if I want to add or remove a guest? I'm assuming after deposit is made.
After deposit, if you take out a guest, it can be considered a full cancellation. Again, I'm just going to say that's the case. You would lose the deposit for that person as long as you're before final payment. After final payment, the penalties start to increase the closer to departure. Adding a guest can be done as long as the room type that you need is available and there is space available on the trip. If Adventures by Disney reaches their maximum number, then you can't add a guest. Also, because you're at the mercy of the hotels that ABD uses, if you have 2 people, if you have a double and all of a sudden you need a triple or a quad, that hotel room, that hotel type has to be available at the hotel for this to be possible.
There has to be room on the Adventure. There has to be room in the room. There has to be room at the hotel.
Is it easy to replace a guest?
For the most part, no. It's considered a cancellation, but that's true of most travel places,
Right.
most travel providers.
Okay, so say I thought I was in good with my husband and I wanted him to go, and then at the last minute.
It also depends on why he's canceling too, and if you have insurance, and there's other factors
just
involved.
basic stuff. Okay.
And the
Also-
closer you get to last minute, it becomes exponentially harder.
And, I don't want to say anything out of place here, but, because of the amount of Adventures by Disney we sell, sometimes it's a little bit easier for us to talk to someone at Adventures by Disney and get, listen, can we make an exception?
Right.
I don't want to say that it's a promise, and it could definitely happen, but, that's some of the things and the benefit of booking with Dreams Unlimited Travel.
I'm not going to give details, but Adventures by Disney, while there are rules, and there are rules with Walt Disney World, etc., when the hurricanes hit Texas and all of the flooding, I had a man who was supposed to travel within the next week. And he said, the airport's closed. I can't get out of my house. And Adventures by Disney was very, very generous in that they let him move his trip a year ahead without a single penalty. However, the extenuating circumstances were so great that this was just a humane thing to do.
Right. So
deciding at the last minute that there's a wedding you'd rather go to, that I'm not going to be able to massage that.
Right.
That's poor planning.
Or saying, I don't know if he's going to go, yes or no, I may bring somebody else. That's not.
I can't.
Right,
I can't.
right.
I can't.
But
make
if something
that kind
happens, if there's a death or
Right.
there's reasons, just like
Or
any
illness or
vacation.
something like that.
Okay.
Can't go for a business
And
reason.
here's the deal. Bob used to say they can't hit you. So I can ask,
Right.
and I can
Right,
be
yeah.
your advocate, and I can work with you to try and see what we can do. But there are rules that we all have to follow.
All right, next question, much shorter. Can I book back-to-back Adventures by Disney vacations?
Absolutely.
Positively.
Kevin at Dreams Unlimited Travel. I have people who do that, who tell me, listen, I'm going to be in Europe.
You're already going to be there. You're already going to pay for that flight. It's not that much more to do a deviation or something like that. You might as well take advantage of being in Europe.
People
Or
tell me all the
wherever
time,
you're
listen,
gonna be.
airfare is so expensive for me, I'm going to do everything I can while I'm there. Or I've heard this many times, I don't ever intend to go back. And that just makes me laugh. And I think, well, wait till you call me next year. We'll talk then. Yeah, it's very possible. There's some planning involved because you have to, have a certain amount of time between the end of the adventure and the start of the new adventure. But Adventures by Disney is very, very good about helping you do that and making sure that I've had to tell Adventures by Disney to let the guides know that your flight's not coming in till 4:00 and the welcome dinner's at 5:00 and you might miss the welcome dinner, but it is possible to do it.
We've done other stuff too. We've done a cruise up to an Adventures by Disney.
We have.
So there's always ways you can get around that. All right, our next question. When will next year's Adventures by Disney trip dates be released?
Nay.
Right. So we're recording this in June of 2018. We just had 2019 trips released. We have most of those, as Kevin said. Some of the short escapes have not been finalized and they're not out. But so we had in May 2019 released, May of next year 2020 will be released.
And I can't give you a date in May.
Right.
It depends. It depends on what it depends on.
Yeah.
But it's usually in May. And some of the trips that ABD releases for the following year, like for instance, we have dates, 2018 dates that go through the end of December, but some of them wrap around into January, February, and March. Costa Rica does that. Backstage Magic does that. Those are still considered 2018 dates.
And that has to do with itinerary and has to do with pricing.
Right.
So it fills that 2018 spot. Same thing with 19 into 20. There are some 2020 dates out there because they've wrapped around into the early part of the year.
Right.
So, but again, if you're looking for, Christmas of 2020, you're going to have to wait until May of
next year.
2019. All right, our final question. Why should I book my Adventures by Disney vacation with a travel agent? Specifically, why should I use Dreams Unlimited Travel when it seems I can do it all on my own with Adventures by Disney? Okay, I admit I wrote this one.
Yeah.
I added this one because I had to make sure we get our little adventure, our Dreams Unlimited Travel plug-in. But this is a question we get a lot from people. Convince me, why should I use you as opposed to booking it myself? What do you tell them, Kevin?
I've been on 21 adventures. I've been working with Adventures by Disney. It's pretty much my full-time job. I do some other things with the company, but my full-time job is Adventures by Disney. I have a very good working relationship with Adventures by Disney. If you have doubts about Kevin at Dreams Unlimited Travel, by all means, I ask you to call Adventures by Disney and they'll tell you whether they know who I am and if I'm reliable. I have a level of comfort with Adventures by Disney that I am willing to be your advocate. And as I explained, the man with the hurricane, that took some convincing, but ABD did the right thing. I can go to bat for you, and we offer you a booking discount. And it's not a gift card you have to use someplace. It is money off the top of your adventure that you don't have to pay. I would also tell you that Dreams Unlimited Travel never charges your card. I never hold any of your money. There is no cost for our services. My services to you are free. The price you pay on your own as booking through me is no different. You'll pay the same price, but if you book on your own, you're not going to get our booking discount. And our booking discount can be substantial. I think that's about it. What else can I say?
Again, I think I like to just say and do this for anything we sell. Listen, Dreams Unlimited Travel has been around for 20 years. We are well established in the Disney community. Disney knows us very well. We are one of the top sellers of Disney travel in the world. So that affords us a little bit of clout. And that affords us the ability to say, listen, if we feel someone's not being treated right, one of our clients is not being treated right, we have the ability to then take it maybe further up in the company and say, listen, you need to make this right. You need to fix it. So you have an advocate. You have someone on your side. Now, we can't do things that are out of the Disney rule book. We can't change the Disney rules. We can't say after 14 days, you have to give this person their money back. Those are the rules. But we can help you with extenuating circumstances.
I can tell you that I had a woman show up at a hotel in London. She had booked 2 pre-nights. I had all of the documentation. ABD was closed. There is an emergency number, but they didn't have the documentation. And I answered her email at 12:30 at night and emailed the hotel the documentation showing that, yes, she did indeed have a reservation. So having an advocate that's willing to go to bat for you is a good thing. You can do it on your own, but then you had better make sure that every T is crossed and every I is dotted.
I also want to say this, too, as not just Kevin, but all of our agents, they all are checking their emails all the time. They get their messages on their phone. There's people who are covering for them when they're not around. So we're not necessarily a 9 to 5 company. It's not like, it's 5 o'clock, 5:05. I can't call my agent or I can't email my agent. Kevin's working at 11 o'clock at night. Teresa's working at, 4 o'clock in the morning.
I don't want to make it sound like it's like slave labor, but I sit with my phone next to me watching TV, and clients are always shocked because they're settling down in the evening. They've done their work day, and that's when they think about, emailing me.
trips.
So when someone emails me at 11 o'clock and I answer them at 11:15, they're always shocked. And they're like, do you ever get away from your computer? And yes, I do, but it's at different times of the day. So, we can handle it. There's enough of us here to handle almost any crisis.
Right. Plus, you get money off.
Plus, you get a discount.
Can't beat that.
Yeah.
And you get to work with me.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you guys very much for helping me with those questions.
Kevin at Dreams Unlimited Travel.
I really appreciate it. And we really appreciate that everyone at home has been listening and watching. We hope you all have a great week, and we hope you have a great vacation.